We will discuss about the non-performing asset. Its classifications, problems and remedial measures are explained in this section. Non-performing asset is one of the important problems faced by the banking sector today. Till 1985, the management of non-performing asset was left to the banks and auditors. It was not treated as a big problem and it was left to the banks and the auditors. In 1985, the Ghost Committee on Final Account, which is run as the health code system, which is an 8-digit category ranging from NPA into an 8 categories ranging from satisfactory 1 to bad and doubtful 8th one. This was the first classification of the NPA. It was done by Ghosh Committee in 1985. That is, Ghosh Committee on Final Account divided the NPA into 8 categories, and then it was known as the health code system from satisfactory to bad and doubtful debt. In 1991, the Narasimha Committee on the Financial System classified the NPA into 4 categories such as standard asset, substandard asset, doubtful asset and loss asset. Thereafter, the Indian banking sector or Indian banking system adopted this as a classification for non-performing asset in India. In 1998, prudential standards were introduced, and in 2001 onwards, 90-day norms for the classification of NPA as per with international standards was introduced. And the definition of non-performing asset is given in this slide. A non-performing asset is an asset including a leased asset is called NPA when the asset ceases to generate income for the bank. That is, when an asset is not contribute to the income generation of a bank, then it is termed as the non-performing asset. Accordingly, the types of the account, the classification and the definition will be different. The interest or the installment of principal remain overdue for a period of more than 90 days in respect of a term loan, then it is termed as NPA. That is, in respect of the term loan, if interest or the installment of principal remains overdue for a period of more than 90 days, then it is termed as NPA. If the account remains out of order in respect of the overdraft or cash credit, then it is termed as a non-performing asset. The bill remains overdue for a period of more than 90 days in the case of bill purchased and discount is termed as the NPA. That is, if the bill remains overdue for a period of more than 90 days, then it is classified as NPA. The installment of principal or interest remains overdue for 2 crop season for short duration crops. That is, in the case of the short duration crops, if the principal and the interest remain overdue for 2 crop seasons, then only it is termed as non-performing asset. And the installment of principal or interest remain overdue for 1 crop season for the long duration crops. That is, in the case of the long duration crops, if the payment of principal and interest remain overdue for 1 crop season, it is termed as non-performing asset. In the case of short duration period, it will be termed as non-performing asset if it remains overdue for 2 crop seasons. The amount of liquidity facility remains outstanding for more than 90 days in respect of securitization transaction undertaken in terms of guidelines on securitization dated February 2006. In the case of the securitization transaction, if the amount remains outstanding for more than 90 days, then it is termed as NPA. In respect of derivative transaction, if this remains unpaid for more than 90 days, then it is specified as NPA. These are the conditions for the treatment of asset as NPA as per the definition given above. That is, in the case of a term loan, if the principal and the interest remain overdue for more than 90 days. In the case of the overdraft or cash credit, if the account remain out of order, then it is treated as NPA. In the case of the bill purchased or discounted, if the bill remain overdue for more than 90 days, it is treated as NPA. And in the case of the short duration crops, if the principal or interest payment remains overdue for more than 2 crop season, then it is termed as NPA. In the case of long duration period, it is treated as NPA if it remains overdue for one crop season. In the case of the securitization assets, if the amount of liquidity facility remains outstanding for more than 90 days, it is considered as NPA. In the case of derivative deposits, if it remains unpaid for more than 90 days, it is specified as NPA. The asset classification of NPA. The first one, as we have seen, it was divided by the asset was classified by the Ghosh committee on health code system, and accordingly he divided the assets into 8 categories ranging from 1 satisfactory to the bad and doubtful. It is at the 8th position. During the initial 8 years 1985 to 86, the bank used to classify the loan account performing or sick under 8 classification to health code system as per RBI. The system offered information regarding the health of the individual advances, the quality of credit portfolio, and the extent of advance causing concern in relation to the total advance. That is, these 8 classifications were as follows: satisfactory, irregular, sick, viable, sick, non-viable, advances, recalled, sweet, filed account, decreed, debt, bad and doubtful debt. These are the 8 classification as per the Ghosh Committee on Final Accounts on health code system. Based on the health code system, RBI classified problem loans of each bank into 3 categories, that is 4 and 5 as advance with undesirable failures. Out of these 8, RBI classified the problem loans or which falls under the non-performing category as 4 and 5 as advance with undesirable features, 6 and 7 advance was sweet, filed or decrease obtained, and 8th one as bad and doubtful debt. This was the classification given by RBI to the non-performing asset according to the health code system classification or the 8-fold classification. In 1991, the Narasimha Committee classified the non-performing asset into substandard asset if NPA for more than NPA for 12 months, and doubtful asset is substandard asset for more than 12 months, and loss asset which cannot be recovered as identified by the auditor banks or the RBI. That is, the Narasimha Committee classified the asset into substandard asset NPA for 12 months, doubtful asset substandard asset for 12 months, and loss asset which cannot be recovered as identified by the auditors banks. And this was the classification given by the asset classification given by the Narasimha Committee 1991. And the NPA can be classified into 2 categories: gross NPA and net NPA. Gross NPA are the sum total of all loan assets that are classified as NPA as per the RBI guidelines as on balance sheet date. Gross NPA reflect the quality of loan made by the bank. It consists of all non-standard assets like substandard, doubtful and loss assets. This is the total NPA of a bank. Gross NPA equal to gross NPA ratio equal to gross NPA divided by the gross advances. This is the ratio of gross NPA to the gross advances termed as gross NPA ratio. Net NPA are those types of NPA in which the bank has deducted the provision regarding NPA. Net NPA shows the actual burden of the bank. Since in India the bank balance sheet contains huge amount of NPA and the process of recovery and the right of loan is very time consuming, the banks have to make certain provisions against the NPA according to the central bank guidelines, that GNP minus provisions, that is, they have to make some provisions in the form they have to manage it from the accumulated profits or other sources, and if we deduct this provision from the gross NPA, what we get is the net NPA. And the NPA also has to undergo the income recognition prudential norms like income recognition, asset classification, reversal of income and provisioning. Then the accounts can be classified further into 90 days category, and this 90 days category includes 3 types of accounts. That is, it is termed as special mention account, SMA account. It was introduced in 2014 for the early identification of non-performing asset. That accordingly, special mention accounts are divided into 3 categories: SMA 0, SMA 1 and SMA 2. SME 0 category is if it remains unpaid due to overdue for 30 days. If it remains overdue for 31 to 60 days, then it is termed as SMA1. If it is if an asset remains overdue for the period 60 to 90 days, then it is termed as or categorized as SMA2. This is the another classification that we follow regarding the non-performing assets in India, that is special mention account. It is on the basis of 90 days, and this is for like earlier detection or the identification of NPA. Here the gross NPA ratio of scheduled commercial banks in India are given, and there is nationalized banks in 2017 has the highest one, then followed by SBI, scheduled commercial banks, then foreign banks, private banks. All these have higher gross NPA ratio. This is the NPA, gross NPA of the scheduled commercial banks. In all these cases, we can say the NPA is mounting or it is increasing. Gross NPA of public sector bank of the public sector bank sector-wise is given here, priority and non-priority sectors. Here, the highest huge amount of NPA is in the non-priority sector. Sector-wise, gross NPA ratio is given here for the agriculture, industry, and the service sector. In the case of industry, the highest amount is in the case of the industrial sector. Industry-wise, bank-based NPA ratio, gross NPA ratio of industrial sector is given. The highest gross NPA ratio is with the public sector banks. Private sector and foreign banks have only 6.6% and 6.5 and 4% only. The gross NPA of large borrowers are given here. Gross advance and gross NPA of large borrowers are given here. Here it is clear that they are having a higher NPA. The impact of or the implication of increase in NPA is given here. We know that the highest share of NPAs in the industrial sector, and it is higher in nationalized bank, and among the industrial sector the highest gross NPA ratio is from the public sector bank. The implication of increase in NPA is given in this section. The implication of increase in NPA is given in this section. First, we will see the impact of increase in NPA on the banking sector. It has an adverse effect on the banking sector. It will affect the growth and sustainability of the bank itself. It will lead to more concentration of banks on credit risk management than expanding their businesses. It will lead to reduction in if business are not expanded, it will lead to a reduction in the interest income. Then if NPA increases, it will lead to high level of provisioning stress. It will increase the stress on profitability and capital adequacy. Alternatively, the net profit will be reduced, and the reduction in the profit will cause a deceleration of capital resources, and it will reduce the competitiveness, and finally it will lead to the bank failure. This is the impact on the banks, that is, it has an adverse effects on the banking sector. The growth and sustainability will be affected. Banks have to concentrate more on credit risk management than expanding their business. This will reduce their interest income, and if NPA increases, more provisioning has to be made for the NPA, and this will reduce the profitability and capital adequacy, and altogether the net profit will be reduced, and if net profit is reduced, this will decelerate the capital resource of the bank and will reduce the competitiveness, and finally it will lead to the bank failure. Let us see its impact on economic development. First of all, the stability of the financial system will is an increase in NPA, then it will affect the stability of the financial system, and there will be bottlenecks in the smooth flow of the credit, and the banks will suffer from the flow of suffer from the provisioning of the credit, and it will affect the smooth flow of credit. The cycle of lending, repaying, borrowing will be broken. The smooth flow of lending, repaying, borrowing, etc. will be broken. Loans for new projects and ongoing projects will be affected if the NPAs are increasing. It will slow down the GDP and industrial growth if loans for the new projects and ongoing projects are reduced. It will affect the gross domestic products as well as the industrial growth, and it will lead to the falling profit margin of the corporates, and it will lead to if it affects the corporate margins, profit margins of the corporates, it will lead to the depression. Finally, deceleration of economic development. This is the impact on the increase in NPA on economic development. That is, the stability of the financial system will be affected. There will be bottlenecks in the smooth flow of credit. The cycle of lending, repaying, borrowing. This is a cycle. If it is smooth, then there will be everything will be correct. If if there exists non-payment of the loans, this cycle will be affected, and automatically the banks will be forced to reduce the loans to new projects as well as ongoing projects. This will affect the GDP growth rate and industrial growth rate, and alternatively, if industrial growth rates are reduced, the profit margins of the corporates will be affected, and if the profit margins of the corporates are reduced, then it will increase the depression, or it will lead to a depressionary situation in the economy, and finally it will lead to the deceleration of economic development. This is the impact on economic development. Then, what are the reasons for this increase in NPA? First one, deterioration in asset quality of Indian bank, especially public sector banks, is the most important reason for the increase in the non-performing asset. Then, second reason is lax credit appraisal and post-sanction monitoring standard. If the credits are not given if credits are given without proper appraisal, or if there is no monitoring of the sanctioned loans, that will affect the loan repayment and asset creation, and finally it will lead to the non-performing asset. Project delays and cost overruns are the other important reasons for the non-performing asset. Then absence of strong bankruptcy regime until May 2016 is another important reason. That is, as deterioration in asset quality, lack of proper credit appraisal system, then lack of proper monitoring of loans and its utilization, delay in project sanctioning and cost overruns, then absence of a strong bankruptcy regime until May 2016 are some of the important reasons for the increasing NPA. How we can reduce this? That is, first important one is reformulate the credit appraisal technique. That is, sanction the loans by taking into account the repaying capacity of the customer. Second one, proper evaluation of loan application. The loan application must be properly evaluated and funds must be provided. Third one, full information about unit, industry, its financial stakes, management, etc. should be collected. There is proper information regarding the customer and the nature of the entity, etc. must be collected. Industrial cells should be established at the bank level, which would have complete information about the industry and its prospects in the future. Then proper credit monitoring. Bank should inspect the progress of the projects of the business. These are some of the important measures the banks can adopt to reduce that is proper utilization of the loan, as well as the proper appraisal of the loan application, etc. Some of the important measures the bank can adopt to reduce the NPA. In order to reduce this NPA, government as well as the RBI has taken so many measures from time to time. Some of them are debt recovery tribunals were adopted or introduced. The Log Alat and the Alat were introduced. FSC Act was introduced. A restructuring of debt scheme was introduced. Cooperative debt restructuring scheme 2001 was introduced. Prompt corrective action framework insolvency, bankruptcy code, then strategic debt restructuring scheme, etc. were introduced from time to time to reduce the NPA of the banking sector. Anyway, bank cannot write off the NPA as it will affect the banking system, or it will affect the financial performance of the banking system. So proper measures to reduce the NPA is the best alternative for reducing the, that is, give the sanction the loan by taking by correct appraisal of the customer and proper monitoring after providing the loans are also a must for reducing the non-performing assets of banking sector. Here we have examined the asset classifications and the non-performing assets of various banks as well as sector-wise non-performing asset, the reasons, its implication on the financial sector as well as on the economic development, reasons for NPA, and some of the measures adopted by the government for reducing NPA are explained in this section.